The emergency alarm screamed through the medical station, cutting through the quiet hum of machines and distant conversations. Dr. Minho Kim looked up from his desk, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. The red light above his door flashed 3 times, then stopped. Someone needed help, and they needed it now. He rushed to the communication panel and pressed the button. A face appeared on the screen, but it was not a face he expected to see. The being had pale blue skin that glowed softly like moonlight on water. His eyes were large and dark, filled with something Minho recognized immediately: pure terror. "Please," the alien said, his voice breaking. "My daughter is dying. I have been to 12 medical stations. Everyone says no. Please, you must help her." Minho felt his chest tighten. "What species are you?" The alien hesitated. "Quarian." The room seemed to grow colder. Minho knew what that meant. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Quarians. 200 years ago, during the Great War, a Quarian military commander had destroyed an entire planet. Billions died. The Galactic Consortium exiled the entire species after that. They could travel, they could trade, but they lived on the edges of civilization. No one trusted them. No one wanted to help them. "Where are you docked?" Minho asked. The alien's eyes widened. "Bay 17. But doctor, I must tell you, everyone else has refused. The other doctors here said they would not treat a Quarian, even a child. If you help us, they will be angry with you." "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Minho said, and cut the connection. He grabbed his medical bag and ran through the corridors of the station. Other doctors and nurses watched him pass. Some looked confused. Others looked away. Word traveled fast in a place like this. They probably already knew what he was about to do. Bay 17 was in the oldest section of the station, where the lights flickered and the air smelled like old metal. Minho found the ship easily. It was small and worn, the kind of vessel that had seen too many jumps through space and not enough repairs. The cargo door was open, and the Quarian man stood there waiting. "Thank you for coming," he said. "My name is Velnar. My daughter is inside. Please hurry." Minho followed him into the ship. The interior was dim and cramped. They moved through a narrow hallway until they reached a small room. On a makeshift bed lay a child no older than 7 or 8 by human standards. Her skin glowed even brighter than her father's, but the light was wrong. It flickered like a dying lamp, pulsing weak and irregular. Minho knelt beside her and opened his medical bag. He pulled out his scanner and passed it over her small body. The readings made his heart sink. Multiple organ failure, severe metabolic disruption. Her body was shutting down system by system. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. 3 days, Velnar said. It started suddenly. One morning she woke up and said her stomach hurt. By evening, she could not walk. The next day she stopped eating. Now she barely opens her eyes. Minho looked at the scanner again, studying the data. He knew human medicine. He knew the basics of many alien species. But Quarian biology was not something he had studied deeply. Their anatomy was complex, their chemistry strange. Most medical schools did not even teach it anymore. Why would they? Quarians were outcasts. "What did the other doctors say?" Minho asked. Velnar's jaw tightened. Most would not even look at her. One did scan her and said it was a genetic disorder, that nothing could be done. Another said he could try, but he wanted payment we could not afford. A third said treating a Quarian child was against station policy. "Against station policy," Minho repeated, feeling anger rise in his chest. A child is dying and they hide behind policy. The girl stirred slightly. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that were completely black except for tiny specks of white like stars in a night sky. She looked at Minho, and even through her pain there was something gentle in that gaze. "Am I going to die?" she whispered. The question hit Minho harder than he expected. He had been a doctor for 15 years. He had seen death many times. But something about this moment, this child asking such a simple and terrible question, made him feel the weight of his profession in a way he had not felt in years. "No," he said firmly. "I'm going to help you." "What's your name?" "Lyra," she said softly. "Lyra, I'm Dr. Minho. I'm going to take you to my medical bay and figure out what's wrong. Your father will stay with you the whole time. Is that okay?" She nodded, too weak to say more. Minho turned to Velnar. "I need to move her to my facility. I have better equipment there." "Will the station allow it?" Velnar asked. "I'm not asking permission," Minho said. They wrapped Lyra in a thermal blanket and Minho carefully lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, her body as light as a human child half her age. Her skin was cool to the touch and that worried him. Quarians were supposed to be warm, their metabolism running hot to power their bioluminescence. The walk back through the station was the longest of Minho's life. People stared. Some whispered. He saw Dr. Ji-won Park, his colleague and friend, standing near the entrance to the medical wing. Her expression was a mix of shock and fear. "Minho, what are you doing?" she called out. "My job," he said without stopping. He reached his private medical bay and laid Lyra on the examination table. The machines hummed to life around them, sensors automatically beginning their work. Velnar stood in the corner, his hands clasped together as if in prayer. Minho's communicator buzzed. He glanced at the message. It was from Grexthor, the station administrator. The message was short and direct. Cease treatment immediately or face disciplinary action. Minho turned off his communicator and tossed it onto his desk. "Let's get to work," he said to himself. He pulled up every piece of information he could find about Quarian physiology. There was not much. Most databases had outdated or incomplete data, but he was not going to give up. This child deserved to live. Every child did, no matter what species they belonged to, no matter what their ancestors had done. As Lyra's bioluminescence flickered weakly on the table, Minho made a silent promise. He would find a way to save her even if it cost him everything. The medical bay was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors and the soft hum of the life support system. Minho had been working for 6 hours straight and his eyes burned with exhaustion. Coffee cups littered his desk, some empty, some half full and forgotten. On the examination table, Lyra lay unconscious, her small chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Minho stared at the holographic display floating above her body. It showed her internal systems in glowing colors, red for critical, yellow for warning, green for stable. Right now there was far too much red. Her liver was failing. Her kidneys were barely functioning. Something in her blood chemistry was completely wrong, causing a chain reaction that was destroying her from the inside. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Dr. Ji-won Park walked in. She looked tired and worried. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail and she still wore her white medical coat from her shift. "You're still here," she said quietly. "Where else would I be?" Minho replied without looking up from the display. Ji-won walked closer, her footsteps soft on the metal floor. She looked at Lyra, then at the monitors showing the girl's failing vital signs. For a long moment she said nothing. "Grexthor came to see me today," Ji-won finally said. "He wanted to know if I was involved in this. He said you're breaking station regulations. He said the Galactic Consortium has rules about treating exiled species without proper authorization." "The Consortium can write all the rules they want," Minho said, his voice hard. "I'm not letting a child die because of politics." "I know," Ji-won said. "I know you won't, but Minho, you need to understand what you're risking. They can take away your medical license. They can ban you from working on any registered station in the galaxy. You could lose everything you've worked for." Minho finally looked at her. "And if I do nothing, she dies. How is that a choice?" Ji-won's expression softened. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside him. "It's not," she admitted. "But I'm scared for you. And honestly, I'm scared for me too. Just being your friend right now could hurt my career." "Then leave," Minho said, but there was no anger in his voice. "I won't think less of you. I know the risks. I'm choosing to take them." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up, walked to the supply cabinet and pulled out a medical tablet. "Show me what you've found so far." 2 heads are better than 1. Minho felt something loosen in his chest. "Thank you." They worked together, going through the scans and test results. The more they learned, the worse it looked. Lyra's condition was something called metabolic cascade syndrome, a rare disease that affected about 1 in every 50,000 Quarian children. The problem was that Quarian medicine had once had treatments for it, but that knowledge was lost during the exile. When the Quarians were forced to leave consortium space, they left behind their hospitals, their research centers, their medical databases. "So we're working blind," Ji-won said, rubbing her eyes. "We don't know how their doctors used to treat this. We'll figure it out," Minho said. "We have to." Over the next several hours, they tried different approaches. They used human medical techniques adapted for alien biology. They experimented with synthetic compounds that might stabilize her failing organs. Nothing worked. Every time they thought they had made progress, Lyra's condition worsened. Velnar sat in the corner of the room the entire time, watching in silence. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He just watched his daughter struggle to breathe, his face carved with helplessness. Around midnight, Minho's communicator buzzed again. This time it was not Grexthor. It was Dr. Hyunwoo Lee, another human doctor who worked 3 levels above them in the Xenobiology Research Division. I heard what you're doing, Hyunwoo's message read. I'm sending you some files. They're old Quarian medical texts I found in an archive. They're incomplete, but they might help. Be careful, Minho. What you're doing is brave, but it's also dangerous. The files appeared on Minho's screen. He opened them eagerly, scanning through pages of alien medical notation and diagrams. Much of it was in a language he could not read, but the station's translation software did its best. Slowly, a picture began to form. Look at this, Minho said, pointing at a diagram. This shows the Quarian circulatory system. See how it has 3 primary chambers instead of 1 heart? Each chamber regulates different things: oxygen, nutrients, and something called bioenergy. That's what powers their bioluminescence. So when one chamber fails, it affects the others, Jiwan said, understanding. That's why everything is shutting down at once. Exactly. But how do we fix it? They kept reading. The text described old treatments using compounds that no longer existed, techniques that required equipment they did not have. Minho felt frustration building inside him. They were so close to understanding the problem, but the solution remained out of reach. Then Jiwan stopped. Wait, look at this section. Minho leaned in. The text described something about protein bonds and chemical stabilizers. It was written in complex medical terminology, but the basic idea was clear. The Quarian doctors used to inject a specific type of protein chain that would bind to the damaged tissues and hold them together long enough for the body to heal itself. We need to find something that can do this, Jiwan said. Some kind of protein that can work with her biology. Minho thought hard. His mind raced through everything he knew about biochemistry, about proteins, about the strange way alien bodies worked. Then something clicked. Human plasma, he said suddenly. Jiwan looked at him. What? Human blood plasma? It contains dozens of different protein structures. Some of them are incredibly complex, more complex than most other species because human biology evolved to be adaptable. What if one of those proteins could work as a substitute? That's insane, Jiwan said. But she was already pulling up a medical database, searching through human blood chemistry. No one has ever tried cross-species plasma transfusion between humans and Quarians. We don't even know if it's safe. We don't have time to run proper tests, Minho said. Look at her vitals. She has maybe 6 hours left. Jiwan stared at the screen, at the data showing human protein structures. Then she looked at Lyra, at the dying child whose light was growing dimmer by the minute. If this works, you'll be famous, Jiwan said quietly. If it doesn't, I'll have tried everything I could, Minho finished. Velnar stood up from his corner. Do it, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Please try anything. I cannot lose her, Minho nodded. I'll need human plasma. Fresh, unprocessed. The station's blood bank won't have enough variety. I'll donate my own. Then I'll donate too, Jiwan said. We'll give her the best chance possible. They worked quickly, setting up the filtration equipment and preparing the transfusion apparatus. Minho drew blood from himself and Jiwan, processing it through a specialized machine that separated the plasma from the red blood cells. Then he modified the plasma, using nanofiltration to remove compounds that might cause a rejection response. As dawn broke over the station, Minho stood beside Lyra's bed with a plasma bag in his hand. The liquid inside was slightly yellow, containing millions of protein chains that might save her life or might do nothing at all. Here we go, he whispered and started the transfusion. All they could do now was wait and hope. The first hour after the transfusion was the worst. Minho stood beside Lyra's bed, watching the monitors with an intensity that made his eyes water. Every beep, every fluctuation in the readings made his heart jump. Jiwan stood on the other side, her hand resting on the medical scanner, ready to shut everything down if the girl went into shock. Velnar had not moved from his spot in the corner. His glowing skin had dimmed to almost nothing, as if his own life force was fading along with his daughter's. His large dark eyes never left Lyra's face. The human plasma dripped slowly through the IV line, entering Lyra's bloodstream drop by drop. At first, nothing happened. The monitors continued their steady alarm, red indicators showing failing organs, warning beeps signaling danger. Minho felt doubt creeping into his mind. What if he was wrong? What if human proteins were completely incompatible with Quarian biology? What if he was making everything worse? Then 15 minutes in, something changed. One of the monitors beeped differently. Minho's eyes shot to the display. The readout showed Lyra's secondary circulation chamber, the one responsible for nutrient distribution. The red warning indicator flickered, turned yellow, then shifted to green. "Did you see that?" Jiwon whispered. "I saw it," Minho said, afraid to believe it. "But it could be a false reading." "Let's wait." They waited. Another 10 minutes passed. Then another monitor changed. The indicator for her liver function moved from critical to warning. Her kidney function improved slightly. The chemical readings in her blood began to stabilize. Velnar stood up slowly, his eyes wide. "What's happening?" "Is she?" "Her body is responding," Minho said, still watching the screens carefully. "The proteins are binding to the damaged tissues. It's working, but they were not safe yet." The transfusion continued for another hour, and Minho monitored every second of it. He adjusted the flow rate, watched for any signs of rejection, checked her temperature and blood pressure constantly. Jiwon prepared emergency medications in case something went wrong, her hands steady despite the tension in the room. By the second hour, there was no doubt anymore. Lyra's condition was improving. Her bioluminescence, which had been flickering weakly like a dying light bulb, grew stronger. The glow spread across her skin more evenly, pulsing with a gentle rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Her breathing deepened, becoming more regular. Minho let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "She's stabilizing." Jiwon smiled, and tears appeared in her eyes. "You did it. You actually did it." Velnar walked to his daughter's bedside. He reached out with a trembling hand and touched her forehead. Her skin was warm now, no longer the cool temperature that had worried Minho so much. The father's face crumpled, and he began to cry, deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere far inside him. "Thank you," he said over and over. "Thank you." Minho put a hand on Velnar's shoulder. "She's not completely out of danger yet. The next 24 hours are critical, but if she continues to improve at this rate, she'll recover fully." "You saved her life," Velnar said, looking at Minho with an expression of pure gratitude. "You saved my little girl when no one else would even try." The words settled over Minho like a weight and a warmth at the same time. This was why he had become a doctor. Not for the salary, not for the prestige, but for moments like this, for the chance to look at a parent and say, "Your child will live." Over the next several hours, Lyra continued to improve. Her organ functions normalized one by one. The cascade failure that had been killing her was stopped and reversed. By late afternoon, her eyes opened fully for the first time in days. "Papa," she said weakly. Velnar was at her side instantly. "I'm here, little light." "I'm here. Where are we?" Lyra asked, looking around the medical bay with confusion. "We're safe," Velnar said. "This doctor helped you." "He made you better." Lyra's eyes found Minho. She studied him for a moment, taking in his human features, his shorter stature compared to her father, his different skin tone, his round eyes instead of the large dark ones of her species. "Are you a human?" she asked. "Yes," Minho said, smiling. "My name is Dr. Minho Kim. How are you feeling?" "Tired," she said. "And hungry." Jiwon laughed. "Hungry is a very good sign." They gave Lyra some nutrient solution, specially formulated for Quarian biology. She drank it slowly at first, then more eagerly. Color continued to return to her skin, and her bioluminescence grew brighter with each passing hour. By evening, she was sitting up in bed, talking quietly with her father. Minho finally allowed himself to relax. He sat at his desk, documenting everything that had happened. The procedure he had performed was completely unprecedented. If the medical community accepted it, this could change xenomedicine forever. Human plasma could potentially help dozens of other species with similar conditions. But as he wrote his notes, reality began to settle in. He had defied direct orders from the station administrator. He had performed an experimental procedure without authorization. He had treated a member of an exiled species against consortium regulations. The consequences were going to be severe. The door to the medical bay slid open. Minho looked up, expecting to see Grexthor or security officers coming to arrest him. Instead, he saw something that surprised him even more. Other doctors had gathered outside his bay. Some were human, but many were aliens, species he had worked with for years. They stood in the corridor looking through the window at Lyra, who was now laughing at something her father said. The girl's bioluminescence filled the room with soft blue light. Dr. Tavin, a reptilian physician from the surgical department, stepped forward. He was known for being strict about regulations, always following every rule precisely. Minho had expected him to be one of his harshest critics. That was remarkable work, Tavin said simply. Then he turned and walked away. Others nodded in agreement. Some looked uncomfortable as if they did not know what to say. A few looked angry. But they had all come to see, to witness what had happened in this room. Jiwan stood beside Minho. Word is spreading fast. Everyone on the station knows what you did. That's what I'm afraid of, Minho said. That night, Minho stayed in the medical bay, sleeping in a chair beside Lyra's bed in case she needed anything. He woke several times, checking her vitals, making sure she was still stable. Each time, her readings were better than before. By morning, she was well enough to eat solid food. Belnar approached Minho as the sun began to shine through the station's viewing ports. Doctor, I need to know. What will happen to you because of this? Minho considered lying, but he saw no point. I'll probably face disciplinary action. Maybe lose my position here. The consortium doesn't like it when doctors ignore their rules, even for good reasons. That's not right, Velnar said, his voice filled with anger. You saved my daughter's life. They should honor you, not punish you. The galaxy doesn't always work the way it should, Minho replied. Belnar was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Every Quarian ship, every trading post, every station that will listen. They need to know that when all others turned their backs, one human doctor chose to help. They need to know your name. You don't have to do that, Minho said. Yes, I do, Velnar said firmly. You gave me back my daughter. The least I can do is give you the truth. Minho did not know if that would help or make things worse. But looking at Lyra, seeing her smile and hearing her laugh, he decided he did not care. Whatever happened next, he had done the right thing. And sometimes that was enough. The trouble started 3 days after Lyra left the medical bay. Minho knew it was coming, but he had hoped for a little more time. He was in the middle of treating a patient, a routine case of space sickness, when 2 security officers appeared at his door. Dr. Kim, the taller officer, said, Administrator Grexthor wants to see you immediately. Minho finished checking his patient's vital signs and prescribed the standard medication. Only then did he follow the officers through the station corridors. People stopped and stared as he passed. Some whispered. Others simply watched in silence. Grexthor's office was on the top level of the station, with a large window overlooking the docking bays. The administrator himself was a Telvanni, a species known for their pride and strict adherence to rules. He stood with his back to the door, his tall, thin frame silhouetted against the stars. Dr. Kim, he said without turning around, do you know how many complaints I have received in the past 72 hours? No, sir, Minho replied. 47. Grexthor finally turned to face him. His face was angular and sharp, his eyes a bright yellow that seemed to glow with anger. 47 formal complaints from physicians, staff members, and station residents. They all say the same thing. You violated station protocol. You treated an exile without authorization. You performed an experimental procedure without proper oversight. You endangered this entire facility. I saved a child's life, Minho said quietly. You broke the law. Grexthor's voice rose. The Galactic Consortium has clear regulations about treating exiled species. These rules exist for good reasons. The Quarians committed terrible crimes. We cannot simply forget what they did. The child committed no crimes, Minho said, keeping his voice steady. She's 7 years old. She had nothing to do with what happened 200 years ago. That doesn't matter, Grexthor said. Rules are rules. If we start making exceptions, where does it end? Today you treat one Quarian child. Tomorrow someone treats a war criminal. The rules exist to maintain order. The rules exist to control people, Minho replied. There's a difference between law and justice. Grexthor's expression hardened. I'm suspending your medical license, effective immediately. You are forbidden from treating any patients until a formal hearing can be arranged. That hearing will take place in 1 week. where a consortium medical board will determine your future as a physician. The words hit Minho like a physical blow, but he did not show it. I understand. I hope you do, Grexthor said. Because this is not just about you anymore. Dr. Park is also under investigation for assisting you. Any other staff members who helped you will face consequences as well. Your actions have put many careers at risk. Guilt twisted in Minho's stomach. He had known there would be consequences for himself, but he had not fully considered how this might affect Ji-won and others. Dr. Park was only trying to help. She made her choice, Grexthor interrupted, just as you made yours. Now you both must face the results. You are dismissed. Minho left the office feeling numb. The walk back to his quarters seemed to take forever. When he finally reached his door, he found Ji-won waiting outside. I heard, she said. I'm suspended too. I'm sorry, Minho said. I never wanted you to— Stop, Ji-won said firmly. I knew what I was doing. I don't regret it. They went inside and sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Ji-won spoke again. There's something else you should know. Someone leaked the story to the public networks. It's spreading everywhere. People are talking about what you did. Minho pulled up his datapad and saw what she meant. The story was all over the station's internal network, and had even reached some of the public communication channels. Messages flooded his inbox, some supportive, many hateful. One message read, "You're a disgrace to medicine. The Quarians deserve nothing from us," another said. "Thank you for showing that compassion still exists in this galaxy." A third was more direct. "You should be executed for helping those murderers." Minho closed the datapad. I didn't want this to become a public spectacle. Too late for that, Ji-won said. But it's not all bad. Look at this. She showed him her own datapad. A human medical researcher named Dr. Hyunwoo Lee had posted a long message defending Minho's actions. He had argued that physicians take an oath to heal, not to judge. He had cited historical cases where doctors had treated enemies during wartime, where medicine had transcended politics. He's putting his own reputation on the line for you, Ji-won said. Over the next few days, the situation grew more intense. Groups formed on both sides of the issue. Some people organized protests outside the medical wing, holding signs that said things like justice, not prejudice, and medicine for all. Others held counter-protests with signs saying, "Remember the massacre and exile means exile, security." Had to increase patrols to prevent the two groups from fighting each other. The station, which had always been a peaceful place, suddenly felt tense and divided. Then the threats started arriving. The first one came through an anonymous message. "You helped the enemy. Now you're an enemy too. Watch your back." Minho tried to ignore it, but more threats followed. Some were vague warnings. Others were specific and violent. Someone left a note on his door that simply read, "Traitor." Ji-won received threats too. One message told her that helping Quarians made her as guilty as they are. Another said she would pay for her crimes. The station's security chief, a massive being named Court from the warrior species called Drax, came to see them on the 5th day. He was nearly 7 feet tall with thick armored skin and eyes that looked like they had seen too many battles. "I'm assigning protection to both of you," he said in his deep, rumbling voice. "There are people on this station who want to hurt you. I won't let that happen. Is that really necessary?" Minho asked. Court looked at him with an expression that might have been respect. "Someone tried to access the medical bay last night. They had weapons. We stopped them before they got inside, but they said they were going to finish what the consortium should have done. So yes, it's necessary." "Who were they?" Ji-won asked. 3 residents from the commercial sector, all species that lost population in the quarry in attacks 2 centuries ago. They're in custody now, but there might be others. Until this settles down, you need protection. After Court left, Minho sat alone in his quarters. He thought about Lyra, who was now healthy and back on her father's ship. He thought about the hatred that existed in the galaxy, passed down through generations. He thought about how one decision had turned his life upside down. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Velnar. "Dr. Kim, I have done as I promised. I have told the Quarian communities about what you did. Many want to thank you, but I have also heard about the threats you are facing. I am deeply sorry. If I had known this would happen, I would never have asked for your help." Minho replied, "Don't apologize. Lyra is alive because we acted. That's what matters. But as he sent the message, he wondered if he truly believed that. The hearing was in 2 days. He could lose everything: his license, his career, his freedom to practice medicine. Other people were suffering because of his choice. The station was divided. Violence had nearly erupted. Had he done the right thing? He wanted to believe he had. But the cost was proving to be much higher than he had imagined. That night he lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. His mind kept replaying the moment when Lyra had opened her eyes and smiled. He kept hearing Velnar's voice saying thank you. He kept seeing the monitors showing her stabilizing vital signs. Whatever happened next, whatever price he had to pay, he could not regret saving that child's life. Some things were more important than rules, more important than careers, more important than personal safety. Some things, like a child's life, were worth any cost. But he hoped the cost would not be too high for the people who had helped him, especially Jiwon. She did not deserve to suffer for his choice. Tomorrow, he decided he would speak at the hearing. He would explain himself. He would accept whatever judgment came, and he would not apologize for doing what any doctor should do, choosing life over politics. The message arrived 2 days before the hearing, and it changed everything. Minho was reviewing his statement for the medical board when his communicator lit up with an incoming transmission. The sender was listed as Quarian Trade Network, Public Broadcast. He opened it, curious. The screen showed Velnar standing on what looked like a cargo ship's bridge. But he was not alone. Behind him stood dozens of Quarians, men, women, and children. All of them had their bioluminescence turned to maximum brightness, creating a sea of blue light. "My name is Velnar," the recording began. "1 week ago, my daughter was dying. I took her to 12 different medical stations. At every single one, doctors refused to help us because we are Quarian. They said our species was exiled. They said treating us was against regulations. They said we deserved nothing from the consortium." Velnar paused, and the camera moved to show Lyra standing beside him, healthy and glowing brightly. "But one doctor said yes. A human named Dr. Minho Kim looked at my dying child and saw a patient, not a criminal. He risked his career and his freedom to save her life. He used his own blood to create a treatment that no one had ever tried before, and now my daughter lives." The camera pulled back to show all the Quarians again. "We are sending this message to every ship, every station, every planet that will listen. We want the galaxy to know that when everyone else showed us hatred, one human showed us mercy. When everyone else turned their backs, one human remembered what it means to be a healer." An older Quarian woman stepped forward. "My son was denied medical care at a station near the Outer Rim. He died from an infection that any basic treatment could have cured. But they would not help him because of what our ancestors did 200 years ago." A young Quarian man spoke next. "My sister lost her baby because the hospital said they would not deliver a Quarian child. They said it was against their policy." One by one, Quarians came forward with their stories. Each one told of being denied care, of watching loved ones die, of facing closed doors and cold refusals. The stories were heartbreaking, and there were dozens of them. The transmission ended with Velnar speaking directly to the camera. "Dr. Minho Kim is facing punishment for saving my daughter. The Galactic Consortium wants to take away his license to practice medicine. They want to make an example of him, to show that compassion has no place in their rules. We ask anyone who believes in justice, anyone who believes that medicine should be about healing and not politics, to speak up. Do not let them destroy a good man for doing what was right." The transmission ended. Minho sat in silence, processing what he had just seen. He had known Velnar would spread the word, but this was something else entirely. This was not just a thank you. This was a call to action. Within hours, the message had spread across the entire trade network. Millions of beings saw it, and the response was immediate and powerful. Some reactions were negative. Messages flooded the station's communication system, demanding that Minho be punished more harshly. Representatives from species that had suffered in the ancient Quarian War sent formal complaints to the consortium. One prominent politician called Minho's actions a betrayal of the victims, but other reactions were very different. A group of refugee families from a species called the Nhili sent a message of support. Their people had been displaced by war and often faced discrimination. They wrote, "We know what it's like to be turned away. Dr. Kim showed that not all beings judge us by our circumstances. We stand with him. Medical students from 3 different universities signed a petition supporting Minho. It read, "We entered medicine to save lives, not to choose which lives deserve saving. Dr. Kim represents the ideals we aspire to." Even some physicians who had initially criticized Minho began to reconsider. Dr. Tavin, the strict reptilian surgeon, sent a private message. "I have been thinking about your case. I have always followed the rules because I believed they protected us. But perhaps some rules protect the wrong things. The most unexpected support came from within the station itself. A young human woman named Somin Choi arrived at the station 2 days before the hearing. She was a medical student in her final year, and she had traveled 3 weeks to get there. Jiwon brought her to meet Minho in his quarters. Samin was small and nervous, clutching a data pad to her chest like a shield. "Dr. Kim," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I saw the message from the Korean families. I read about what you did. I wanted to come here and tell you that you inspired me. When I started medical school, I had all these ideals about helping people. But over time, I learned that medicine is also about politics and money and following rules. I was starting to think that the ideals did not matter anymore. Then I heard about you. I'm not a hero," Minho said quietly. "I just did what any doctor should do." "That's the point," Soman said. "You did what any doctor should do, but most doctors would not have done it. You reminded me why I wanted to be a doctor in the first place. So I came here to volunteer. If they take away your license, I will speak for you. If they let you continue practicing, I want to work with you. That could ruin your career before it even starts," Minho warned. Somin smiled. "Then maybe my career was never worth having. I would rather work with someone like you and face consequences than work safely and ignore people who need help." More support arrived throughout the day. A coalition of physicians from various species sent a formal letter to the medical board. They called themselves Healers Without Borders, and they argued that the consortium's regulations about treating exiled species violated the fundamental principles of medicine. Dr. Hyunwoo Lee, the researcher who had first defended Minho publicly, arrived at the station in person. He came to Minho's quarters that evening, carrying a large case filled with datapads and research materials. "I've been going through the consortium's medical charter," Hyunwoo said, spreading the materials across Minho's table. "The charter says that all sentient beings have the right to emergency medical care, regardless of species or status. That right was established after the Plague Wars, when we learned that disease does not care about politics. The regulations about treating exiled species came later, and I believe they contradict the original charter." "You think we can use that at the hearing?" Jiwon asked. "I know we can," Hyunwoo said. "The charter has higher authority than station regulations. If we can prove that denying care to Koreans violates the charter, then Minho was not only right to help Lyra, he was obligated to help her." That night, Minho could not sleep again, but this time it was not because of anxiety. He kept thinking about all the people who had come forward to support him. He had expected to face this battle alone, but instead he found himself at the center of something much larger. Velnar's message had done more than defend one doctor. It had opened a conversation about how the galaxy treated its outcasts. It had forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about prejudice and justice. It had made beings from dozens of species ask themselves, "What would I do in that situation? Would I help or would I turn away?" The next morning, Minho received a message that shocked him. It was from a group of Korean physicians, doctors who had managed to maintain their practice in exile, working in the shadows of the consortium. "Dr. Kim," the message read, "we have been silent for too long. We have accepted our exile and tried not to cause trouble, but your actions have shown us that silence is not enough. We are coming to the station to testify at your hearing. We are going to tell the medical board about all the patients we could have saved if we had been allowed to work freely. We are going to show them that medicine should have no borders." Minho showed the message to Jiwon and Hyunwoo. They both looked surprised. "This is bigger than you now," Jiwon said. "This is about changing how the entire consortium thinks about exiled species and medical care." "I never wanted that," Minho said. "I just wanted to save one child." "But you did not just save one child," Hyunwoo replied. "You showed the galaxy what compassion looks like. You proved that one person's choice can make a difference, and now others are making the same choice." Court, the security chief, appeared at the door. "The hearing is tomorrow. The chamber is going to be packed. We have observers coming from 20 different species. The medical board has never seen anything like this. Are we ready? Minho asked. Hyunwoo gathered the research materials. Jiwon checked their prepared statements. Soman stood ready to speak if needed. We're ready, Jiwon said. But Minho knew that ready or not, tomorrow would change everything. Either the medical board would uphold the principles of medicine, or they would choose politics over compassion. Either way, the galaxy would be watching, and whatever happened, at least the conversation had started. People were asking questions. They were challenging old assumptions. They were remembering that behind every rule and regulation, there were real beings with real lives. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all one doctor could hope to accomplish, or maybe, just maybe, it was only the beginning. The hearing chamber was built to hold 50 people, over 200 beings packed inside, standing in every available space. Minho could see representatives from dozens of different species. Some he recognized, many he did not. Security officers lined the walls, tense and ready in case the crowd became unruly. At the front of the chamber sat 5 members of the consortium medical board. They were the judges who would decide Minho's fate. In the center sat a Velkari elder with silver skin and wise eyes. To her left was a human physician with gray hair and a stern expression. To her right were 3 other representatives from major species in the consortium. Grexthor sat at the prosecutor's table, his yellow eyes fixed on Minho with obvious satisfaction. He had prepared his case carefully, stacking data pads and evidence displays in neat rows before him. Minho sat at the defendant's table with Jiwon on one side and Hyunwoo on the other. His hands were folded on the table, trying to appear calm even though his heart was racing. Behind him, he could feel the eyes of everyone watching, supporters and critics alike. The Velkari elder struck a resonant tone with her hand, calling the chamber to order. The noise died down immediately. This hearing will determine whether Dr. Minho Kim violated medical protocols and consortium regulations, she announced, her voice clear and carrying through the chamber. We will hear testimony from both sides, examine evidence, and render judgment. Let us begin. Administrator Grexthor, present your case. Grexthor stood, his tall frame commanding attention. Thank you, honored board. The facts of this case are simple and undeniable. Dr. Kim treated a patient from an exiled species without authorization. He performed an experimental procedure without proper oversight. He ignored direct orders from station administration. He violated multiple sections of the consortium medical code. Grexthor activated a holographic display showing the relevant regulations. Section 47 clearly states that treatment of exiled species requires special authorization from the medical board. Section 103 requires all experimental procedures to undergo peer review and approval. Section 12 mandates that physicians follow station protocols. Dr. Kim violated all 3. He gestured to the crowded chamber. Some may say that the outcome justifies his actions, but we cannot allow emotion to override law. If we permit doctors to ignore regulations whenever they feel justified, we invite chaos. Medicine requires order, structure, and rules. Dr. Kim chose to place himself above those rules. Grexthor sat down, looking confident. The board members made notes on their data pads. The Velkari elder turned to Minho's table. Dr. Lee, you are speaking for the defense. Present your case. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the center of the chamber. He carried a single data pad, but his posture was confident and his voice was strong. Honored board, Administrator Grexthor is correct about one thing. This case is about rules. But it is not about whether Dr. Kim broke station regulations. It is about which rules take priority when they conflict with each other. He activated his own display, showing the consortium medical charter. This charter was established 200 years ago after the Plague Wars. It states, and I quote, "All sentient beings have the fundamental right to emergency medical care, regardless of species, origin, or political status." This charter was created specifically because we learned that disease and death do not care about our politics. Hyunwoo pointed to the section. Station regulations about treating exiled species were added later. But regulations cannot override the charter. And the charter is clear. All sentient beings have the right to emergency care. Lyra was dying. She needed emergency care. Dr. Kim was obligated by the charter to help her. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The board members leaned forward, interested. Furthermore, Hyunwoo continued. Dr. Kim's experimental procedure was not reckless. He researched extensively. He used his own knowledge and available medical texts. He took every precaution. And most importantly, it worked. He saved that child's life using a technique that could potentially help thousands of other patients. His innovation should be celebrated, not punished. Grexthor stood up. The charter refers to emergency care at medical facilities, not to seeking out exiled species and offering them treatment. Dr. Kim actively chose to help them. Is there a difference? Hyunwoo asked sharply. If a patient arrives at your door dying, does it matter how they got there? Does the charter say all sentient beings except those we dislike? Does it say emergency care only if politically convenient? The chamber erupted in noise, some beings shouting support, others arguing against. The Velkari elder struck another tone, calling for silence. We will hear testimony, she announced. Call your first witness, Dr. Lee. Hyunwoo called Jiwon to testify. She stood and walked to the witness platform, her expression nervous but determined. Dr. Park, tell us what you observed, Hyunwoo said. Jiwon took a breath. I watched Dr. Kim work for nearly 12 hours straight to save that child. He did not make a quick decision or act rashly. He researched every option. He consulted medical texts. He carefully monitored every step of the procedure. He showed the kind of dedication and care that every doctor should show their patients. Did his actions seem reckless to you? Hyunwoo asked. No. They seemed like medicine, Jiwon replied. Grexthor cross-examined her, trying to establish that she had violated regulations too. But Jiwon held firm, refusing to apologize for helping save a life. The next witness surprised everyone. A door opened and 3 Quarian physicians entered the chamber. They wore medical robes marked with old symbols from before the exile. The crowd gasped. Few people had seen Quarian doctors in consortium space for generations. The eldest of the 3, a woman whose bioluminescence had dimmed with age, spoke first. My name is Dr. Ilara. I have practiced medicine for 43 years in exile. I have watched hundreds of patients die from treatable conditions because they could not access consortium medical facilities. I have trained young doctors in secret because we are not allowed to attend medical schools. I have seen children like Lyra die because no one would help them. Her voice grew stronger. Dr. Kim did what I could not do. He had the freedom to help and he chose to use it. He reminded us that medicine is about healing, not about hatred. If you punish him, you tell the galaxy that compassion is a crime. Grexthor tried to dismiss their testimony, arguing that they were biased. But the board members were listening carefully and their expressions were thoughtful. Then another witness appeared that changed everything. A hologram activated in the center of the chamber, showing a small figure with glowing blue skin. It was Lyra. She stood in what looked like her father's ship, wearing a simple dress, her bioluminescence bright and healthy. When she spoke, her young voice filled the chamber. My name is Lyra. I am 7 years old. A week ago I was dying. I remember feeling so tired and cold. I remember my papa crying. I remember doctors saying no over and over. Then Dr. Minho came. She smiled, and it was the most innocent and genuine expression anyone in that chamber had seen in a long time. He did not ask if my ancestors were bad people. He did not ask if helping me was allowed. He just asked my name. Then he made me better. I do not understand all the big words you are saying, but I understand this. Dr. Minho saved my life. If you punish him for that, then something is wrong with your rules, not with him. The chamber was completely silent. Even Grexthor seemed affected, though he tried to hide it. The Velkari elder spoke gently. Thank you, young one. You may go. The hologram faded, but Lyra's words hung in the air. Finally, Hyunwoo called Dr. Suji An as his final witness. She was a renowned human xenobiologist who had traveled from a research station specifically for this hearing. Dr. An, what is your professional assessment of Dr. Kim's procedure? Hyunwoo asked. Revolutionary, she said simply. Dr. Kim discovered that human plasma proteins can stabilize Quarian metabolic systems. This has implications far beyond one patient. We have been testing his technique in laboratory conditions, and the results are remarkable. This could help treat dozens of rare conditions across multiple species. So his work has scientific value? Hyunwoo pressed. Immense value. This is the kind of breakthrough that changes xenomedicine, and it came from a doctor who was willing to try something new because he cared more about his patient then about following the safe path. After all the testimony was complete, the Velkhari elder gave Minho a chance to speak for himself. Minho stood and walked to the center of the chamber. He looked at the board members, then at the crowd, then back to the board. "I do not regret what I did," he said simply. "A child was dying and I had the knowledge and tools to help her. I could not look at her and say no because of politics. I could not let her die because 200 years ago, people she never knew committed terrible crimes. She deserved to live and I did what I was trained to do. I saved her," he paused. "If that means I lose my license, so be it. But I would make the same choice again, because that is what it means to be a doctor. We heal. That is our purpose. And if our rules prevent us from healing, then our rules are wrong." The chamber erupted again, but this time the Velkhari elder let the noise continue for a moment. Then she struck the tone again. "The board will deliberate," she announced. "We will reconvene in 3 hours with our judgment." The wait was agony. Minho sat in a small room with Jiwon Hyunwoo. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread that the verdict was coming, and beings from all over the station had gathered to hear it. Some stood on chairs to see over the crowd. Others watched from screens in the corridors outside. The entire station seemed to be holding its breath. Minho sat at his table, his hands folded, his expression calm despite the storm of emotions inside him. Jiwon squeezed his hand once, a silent gesture of support. Hyunwoo sat straight and ready, prepared to argue further if needed. The 5 board members entered and took their seats. The Velkhari elder's face was unreadable. The human physician beside her looked troubled. The other 3 members showed no emotion at all. The elder struck her tone, and the chamber fell silent instantly. "This board has reviewed all evidence and testimony," she began, her voice carrying through the space. "We have examined the regulations in question, the circumstances of the case, and the arguments presented by both sides. This has been one of the most difficult decisions this board has ever faced." She paused, and Minho felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "Dr. Minho Kim did violate station protocols," she continued. "The evidence of this is clear. He treated an exiled species without authorization. He performed an experimental procedure without formal approval. He ignored direct orders from station administration." Minho felt his stomach drop. This was it. They were going to take everything from him. "However," the elder continued, and Minho's eyes snapped back to her, "we must also acknowledge that Dr. Kim's actions were in direct accordance with the Consortium Medical Charter, which supersedes station regulations. The charter guarantees emergency medical care to all sentient beings. The child was dying. Dr. Kim was obligated to help her." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Grexthor leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Furthermore," the elder said, "Dr. Kim's experimental procedure, while conducted under emergency conditions, showed remarkable care and scientific rigor. His innovation has already proven to have significant medical value. Dr. An's testimony confirms this." She looked directly at Minho now. "The board finds that you acted in violation of station protocols, and for this you will receive a formal reprimand on your record. However, we do not find that you acted recklessly or maliciously. Your medical license will not be revoked." Relief flooded through Minho, but the elder was not finished. "That said, we recognize that your presence at this station has become problematic. The divisions your actions have revealed cannot be easily healed. Therefore, we are offering you a new assignment." She activated a holographic display showing a space station under construction. "The consortium has approved funding for an independent medical sanctuary, a facility that will provide care to any species, regardless of political status, exile, or ability to pay. This facility will be funded by donations and operated independently of normal consortium oversight. It will be a place where medicine is practiced without prejudice." The elder looked at Minho with something that might have been approval. "We are offering you the position of Chief Medical Officer at this facility. You will build and lead a team dedicated to the principles you demonstrated: compassion, innovation, and the belief that all lives have value. Do you accept?" Minho stood slowly, hardly believing what he was hearing. "I accept." The chamber erupted in noise, some beings cheering, others shouting in anger. Grexthor looked furious, his face tight with barely controlled rage. But the board's decision was final. "This hearing is concluded," the Velkhari elder announced and struck her tone one last time. The next few hours were a blur. People surrounded Minho, some congratulating him, others asking questions about the new facility. Reporters requested interviews. Medical students asked how they could volunteer. Even some of the physicians who had initially opposed him approached to offer grudging respect. Dr. Taven, the strict reptilian surgeon, stopped Minho in the corridor outside the chamber. "I still believe you broke important rules," he said. "But I also believe those rules needed to be broken. That is a difficult thing to admit." Court, the massive security chief, appeared through the crowd like a ship cutting through waves. "You will need security at this new facility. The people who threatened you will not simply disappear. I am requesting a transfer." "You want to come with me?" Minho asked, surprised. "Someone must protect the fool humans who keep starting revolutions," Court said, with what might have been a smile. "Besides, I respect courage." "You had courage." Jiwon appeared at Minho's side. "I'm coming too, obviously. You cannot build a medical facility without a competent administrator, and you are terrible at paperwork." Hyunwoo approached next. "I have been at research stations for 15 years studying medicine from a distance. I think it is time I remembered what it feels like to actually practice it. I'm volunteering." Soman, the young medical student, stood nervously nearby. "I know I am not experienced yet, but you're hired," Minho said before she could finish. "We need people who remember why they wanted to be doctors." Over the next few weeks, the team grew. Physicians from multiple species volunteered to join the project. Some were young idealists inspired by Minho's actions. Others were older doctors who had grown tired of politics interfering with medicine. The 3 Korean physicians who had testified offered to serve as consultants, sharing knowledge that had been lost during the exile. The coalition of physicians who had supported Minho formalized their organization, calling it Healers Without Borders. They pledged to staff the new facility and to advocate for medical access throughout the galaxy. Donations poured in from unexpected sources. Velnar contributed his ship to help transport supplies and equipment. Refugee communities who had faced discrimination donated what little they could. Even some wealthy merchants who had been moved by Lyra's testimony sent substantial funds. The construction of the sanctuary station progressed rapidly. Engineers from multiple species worked together to build a facility, unlike anything the consortium had seen before. It would have advanced medical equipment, research laboratories, training facilities, and enough space to handle hundreds of patients at once. 6 months after the hearing, Minho stood in the observation deck of the new station, watching the final construction crews complete their work. The station hung in space like a promise, its lights shining against the darkness. Jiwon joined him at the window. "We open in 2 weeks. Are you ready?" "I have no idea," Minho admitted. "Building this place was hard. Running it will be harder. But necessary," Jiwon said. "Word has already spread. We have appointment requests from 30 different species. Some have traveled for weeks just to be on the waiting list." Soman appeared carrying a data pad. "Dr. Kim, the first supply ship has arrived. And you have a visitor." Minho turned to see Velnar walking toward him, and beside him was Lyra. The girl had grown in the past months, and her bioluminescence was bright and strong. She ran forward and hugged Minho without hesitation. "You built a whole station," she said excitedly. "Papa says this is all because you helped me." "Not just because of you," Minho said. "Because of everyone who decided to help after you." Velnar placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "We came to attend the opening ceremony," Lyra insisted. "She says she wants to be a doctor now like you." "The galaxy needs more doctors," Minho said, smiling at the girl. "Good ones who understand that medicine is about healing, not about rules." "Will you teach me?" Lyra asked. "When you are older, yes," Minho promised. The opening ceremony 2 weeks later was attended by representatives from dozens of worlds. Some came to support the sanctuary. Others came out of curiosity. A few came to criticize, still believing that exiled species deserved no help. But when the doors opened and the first patients were admitted, beings from species both honored and outcast, rich and poor, welcomed and rejected, something shifted in how people viewed the facility. This was not about politics. This was about medicine in its purest form. Minho treated his first patient in the new facility that same day. She was a young being from a species he did not recognize, suffering from a rare genetic condition. He worked with his team, Jiwon, Hyunwoo, Soman, and a dozen others, to develop a treatment plan. It took hours, but eventually they found a solution. As the patient's vital signs stabilized, Minho felt the same satisfaction he had felt when treating Lyra. This was why he had become a doctor. This was what medicine was supposed to be. Days turned into weeks, then months. The sanctuary treated thousands of patients. The research teams made breakthrough after breakthrough, sharing their discoveries freely with the medical community. The training programs educated young doctors in the philosophy of medicine without borders. Not everyone approved. Some consortium members continued to criticize the sanctuary. Political groups protested its existence. But slowly, steadily, attitudes began to shift. Other facilities started adopting similar policies, refusing to turn away patients because of their species or status. The conversation that Minho had started continued to spread and grow. 1 year after the sanctuary opened, Minho received a message from the Velkari elder who had judged his case. It read, "What you have built is remarkable,